Abel's Island, Chapter 1. Early in August 1907, the first year of their marriage, Abel and Amanda went to picnic in the woods, some distance from the town where they lived. The sky was overcast, but Abel didn't think it would be so inconsiderate as to rain when he and his lovely wife were in the mood for an outing. They enjoyed a pleasant lunch in the sunless woods, sharing delicate sandwiches of pot cheese and watercress, along with hard-boiled quail, egg, onions, olives, and black caviar. They toasted each other and everything else with a bright champagne, which was kept cool in a bucket of ice. Then they played a jolly game of croquet, laughing without much reason, and they continued laughing as they relaxed on a carpet of moss. When this happy nonsense got boring, Amanda crawled under a fern to read, and Abel went off by himself for a bit. Roaming among the trees, admiring the verdure, he saw a crowd of daisies clustered above him, like gigantic stars, and decided to cut one down and present his wife with a pretty parasol. He was already smiling at the little joke he would make as he held it over his head. He chose a perfect daisy and, using his handkerchief to avoid being soiled by the sap, carefully cut through the stem with his penknife. The daisy over his shoulder, he sallied back toward his wife, very pleased with himself. It grew windy rather suddenly, and some rain fell, wherever it could through the foliage. It was hard to hold on to the flower. His wife was under the fern, exactly where he left her, absorbed in the life of her book. "I have something for you," he said, lifting the tip of the fern. Amanda looked up at him with large, puzzled eyes, as if a page of words had unaccountably turned into her husband. A sharp gust of wind tore the daisy from her grasp. "It's raining," Amanda observed. "Indeed it is," said Abel indignantly as the rain fell harder. It flailed down while they tried to gather their things. They huddled under Abel's jacket. He offended at the thoughtless weather. She worried, both hoping the downpour would soon let up. It didn't. It grew worse. Tired of waiting and of wondering where all that water came from, they decided to make a break for it. With the jacket over them, they headed for home, leaving their picnic behind, but they could make little progress against the wind. There was some angry thunder and dazzling flares of lightning near and far. "Dear one," cried Abel, "we must find shelter anywhere." They stopped bucking the wind and ran skeltering with it in dismay. Clinging together, they ran or were blown through the woods and eventually came up against a great rocky cliff that shimmered in the pounding rain. They could be blown no farther. The shelter they'd been seeking was very close. "Up here!" some voices called. "Up here!" Abel and Amanda looked up. Not far above them was the opening of a cave, from which various furry faces peered out. They clambered together up into the cave, greatly relieved and panting for breath. Chapter 2. The cave was full of chattering animals who'd been lucky enough to find this haven. There were several mice that Abel and Amanda knew, and a family of toads they had once met at a carnival. All the rest were strangers. A weasel was off by himself in a corner, saying his prayers over and over. Abel and Amanda were welcomed by all, and congratulations passed around. The storm raged as if it had lost its mind completely. The damp occupants of the cave stood close together in the vaulted entrance like actors who had played their parts and could now watch the rest of the show from the wings. The storm was turning into a full-fledged, screaming hurricane. Huge trees were bent by furious blasts of wind. Branches broke, thunder volleyed, and crazy shafts of lightning zigzagged in the dark, steamy sky. Abel and Amanda stood in the forefront of the group, entranced by the fearsome drama. Amanda craned forward to watch an oak topple when suddenly the wind tore from her neck the scarf of gauze she was wearing, and this airy web of stuff flew like a ghost from the mouth of the cave. Abel gawked in horror, as if Amanda herself had been rudely snatched away. He dashed out impulsively. To no avail. Amanda tried to stop him. "Abelard!" she screamed. She always used his full name when she thought he was acting foolish. He slid, unheeding, down the slope of rock. The scarf hooked onto a bramble, from which he retrieved it, but when he tried to climb back with this trophy, the wind walloped and sent him spinning like weightless tumbleweed, his sweetheart's scarf in his paw. Helpless, unable even to struggle, he tucked in his head and was whirled along, shocked and bewildered. Heaven knows how far he was hustled in this manner, or how many rocks he caromed off on his way. He didn't know thinking, he only knew it was dark and windy and wet, and that he was being knocked about in a world that had lost its manners and direction as far as he could tell, not north, south, east, or west, but whatever way the wind had a mind to go. And all he could do was wait and learn what its whims were. Its whims was to fling him against a huge nail, where he fastened with all his strength. The nail was stuck in a fragment of board that had once been part of a large animal's house, and the fragment of board was embedded in a gully full of gravel. Abel clung to the nail and to Amanda's scarf, fighting the wind, whose force seemed to increase when he stopped riding with it. The torrent of wet air tearing past made breathing difficult. Abel stuffed Amanda's scarf into his inner pocket and buried his head under his blazer. He soon found himself haunch deep in a swelling stream. Rain had filled the gully, and a heavy flow of muddy water loosened his board from its gravel mooring. He went sailing along, spinning this way and that, drilled with a trillion bullets of rain. Whatever happened no longer surprised him. It was all as familiar as one's very worst dreams. It was definitely night now. He could see nothing, not his own paw in front of his face. But he knew he was moving swiftly upon his board. Soon he sensed he was in a river. In the immense darkness he could hear only wind, and all around him rain falling into water. A new sound slowly emerged, the murmur of roiling foam. His boat was moving toward it, and it rose into a turbulent roar. Then, with no advance notice, the boat tilted vertically and shot downward on what he was sure was a waterfall. Plunged deep in the water below, he fought against drowning. Then, still hugging his nail, he rode slowly into a maelstrom of churning river, gasping for indrafts of air. Never had he been subjected to such rude treatment. How long could it last? How long, he wondered, could he abide it? As if to answer that question, his craft shot forward again, and he was pitched, jerked, and bandied about by the writhing, charging stream. His boat capsized, then righted itself, and began turning over and over. Each time his exasperated head bobbed up, he gasped for his possibly last final breath. His fortitude amazed him. Suddenly, thump! He was no longer moving. His craft had struck an unyielding mass and stuck in it. He had no idea in the blackness where in the world he was. It was any wet, windy where. He could feel the heavy water hurrying past him, tugging at his clothes. Drenched, cold, exhausted, he still held on to his nail, but the water pressing him against it allowed him to ease his grip, and it was a relief. The wind still screamed, the rain still pelted, the river still raged, but he felt in some sort of harbor. Momentarily moored, wherever it was, he was able to wonder about Amanda. She was surely safe in the cave, among friends. She would be worrying about him, of course, but he would be getting back to her as soon as he could. This was the weirdest experience of his life. He could never forget it, never forget it, never forget it. But for the moment he did. Merciful sleep shrouded his senses. He slept, curled around the rusty nail, wind and rain drubbing his tired young body.